everybody! Welcome to the Jayda InStitches show. I believe I inherited a love of cute and quirky kitchen decor from my grandmother. In particular, I love the look of vintage pot holders, and they're really useful too. If you're setting up a counter for like a potluck or something, it's a fun way to display them all while you're waiting for all the dishes to arrive. Today, we're going to make this really simple and easy pot holder in a classic design, but we're going to freshen it up with a daisy applique. This pattern is easy and has a lovely texture to it too. We have a separate tutorial for our daisy applique, and we'll put a link to that video in the description box down below. This is a really great scrap cotton yarn project. In fact, a whole set of these in different colors would be just dandy, and a pretty nice way to work through your stash too. So, let's grab our hooks, grab our cotton yarn, head on over to the craft table, and we will stitch up a cute and quick pot holder together. In order to make our vintage pot holders today, we are using a medium worsted size 4 100% cotton yarn. So this is medium weight yarn. I'm using Bernat Handicrafter cotton, but you can use any medium weight cotton yarn for this. Cotton is great because it can get tossed in the washing machine and it won't melt when it comes into contact with heat. You also want to make yourself a daisy using the same kind of yarn, and our daisy tutorial, we'll put a link to that in the description box down below. Make sure you leave a long tail after you've finished making your daisy, because that's what you're going to sew your daisy to your pot holder with. You also need a pair of scissors, a yarn needle, and I'm using a size 5mm or an H hook. And once you've got all that together, we can get started. We're going to begin with our pot holder. We're going to start with a slip knot. And we're going to chain 12. Once you have 12 chains, careful not to twist your foundation chain row. You're going to join with a slip stitch to the first chain you made to form a ring. There we go. I'm going to work over that little short tail, and into this ring we're going to single crochet 18. So 18 single crochets into your ring. 18 single crochet into your ring should look something like this. We're going to join with a slip stitch to the first single crochet we made. And that is that little hanger that you're going to hang your pot holder with, if you so choose. We're going to chain one and turn our work. And we're going to start in the very next stitch. So this little turning chain doesn't really count for this row. We're going to begin our pot holder in the very next stitch. You're going to single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. Work 3 single crochet into the very next stitch. This is going to become the center or the point of our entire dishcloth. So 3 single crochet into the same stitch, and then single crochet into each of the next 4. Alright, that's row 1 of our little dishcloth made, and you should have something that looks like this. You've got a chained ring, and you've got a little V starting underneath it. Chain 1 at the end of every row, turn your work, and you're going to work back single crochet in each stitch. There's going to be 5 of them going down this side of the V now, until you get to the middle single crochet at the bottom of the V. So you should have 5 single crochet. The middle stitch, you're going to work 3 single crochet into it. And if you're having trouble always identifying your middle stitch, after you finish your 3 single crochet, because this is going to get quite big after several rows, after you've finished working 3 single crochet into that center stitch, you can always grab a safety pin or a stitch holder, a stitch marker, and just mark that middle stitch so that you don't have to sort of count every single time you're working up and down each side. So work your 3 single crochet in the very bottom point, mark the middle one with a marker of some sort if you feel you need the visual help, and then remember you just single crochet in each stitch up to the end of the row, and there'll be an even number on both sides. So if there's 5 single crochet working down one side of the V, after you work your 3 single crochet in the bottom, you know you have 5 more to work up the other side. Chain 1 and turn. And now for row 3, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to single crochet into the back loops only. So back loops are always the furthest loop away from you. You're going to single crochet using the back loops only of each stitch up to the bottom point. So there'll be 6 single crochets on this side and 6 on the other. And for this row, we're just working the back loops only. Once you get to your marked stitch, or the middle stitch, however you're choosing to keep track of it, take out your marker and work 3 single crochets, still using the back loop only, into that center stitch. So remember, we're creating a V, so we always need a point. And still using the back loops only, see I'm picking up the loop furthest away from me, single crochet in each of those last 6 stitches, working up the other side of the V. So that was a row 3, or as we're going to call it, an odd row now. Chain 1 and turn. And you're just going to work the regular stitch, single crochet in each stitch, using both loops, so a regular single crochet stitch, all the way down to your point. Work 3 single crochet in the center stitch, or the bottom point single crochet, and then work regular single crochet in each stitch up the other side. Alright, that was an even row we completed. Even rows are always worked through the whole stitch. At the end of that row, chain 1 and turn, just like you do at the end of every row. We're into an odd row now, and odd rows are odd. We're going to use the back loops only in our odd rows. So we're still putting a single crochet in every single crochet all the way down each side, and working 3 single crochet in the bottom or the center stitch. But on an odd row, all you're going to do is use the back loops only. And this is going to create a really nice little ridge effect overall in our pretty little vintage dishcloth or pot holder. So you're still working single crochets, but when you get down to that middle one or the center one, remember that all 3 of those single crochets get worked into the back loop only. At the end of the odd row, like every row, chain 1, turn your work, and you can see that lovely ripple, or sort of that ridge effect now that's happening. And we're on an even row, so you're just going to single crochet through the whole stitch for each stitch up and down both sides, and for the 3 single crochet in the bottom middle. So I'm going to let you guys go now. You're going to work alternating even and odd rows, even and odd rows. You're always going to work the 3 single crochet in the very bottom stitch. That's our center, and that's what's causing this nice little mitered effect, so this sort of 2 definite sides. And you can either mark that stitch if you have trouble sort of locating it visually with a stitch marker and move it every row, or you can use the counting method. Every side will have the exact same number of stitches on it. So if it's 8, it's 8 with 3 in the center. Next row it'll be 9 and 9 with 3 in the center. And then 10 and 10 with 3 in the center, and so on. Remember that odd rows are worked into the back loop only, and even rows are worked through the entire stitch, and that is what's going to give us this nice little ridged effect. You're going to continue to work even and odd rows, even and odd rows, even and odd rows, until our pot holder measures about 8 inches or 20 centimeters down one entire side. And I'll catch up with you there. Alright, I have completed 28 rows of my dishcloth. The odd row is what creates the little ridge, the even row is what follows it. You can continue to work that pattern until your dishcloth is the length of one side that you need. Just make sure you end on an even row. So I've got 28 rows, and just in case you're wondering, that's 31 stitches on each side with 3 stitches in the center. So that's where I ended. If you grab your measuring tape and measure it from the top of row 1 all the way down to the bottom edge, that works out to 8 inches or 20 centimeters. So that's big enough for me. Once you've got the right length you can snip your yarn, fasten off, and the back side of your dishcloth is all kind of one. You don't really see the ridges as much as you do on the front. You can really see those ridges. So on the back side, you're going to grab your yarn needle and you're just going to weave in your little tail through some of the stitches across the last row you just completed. You may have a little bit of curling. Don't worry. If you're giving this as a gift, you can just lightly steam block it, wait till it's dry before you wrap it up, or you can just start using it. These are really pretty just on their own, so if you like the way that looks plain, you can make a whole bunch just plain, but we are adding a cute little daisy today. So you're going to grab your daisy or whatever other applique you might want to try out. We've got a whole bunch of appliques. We've put the playlist in the description box down below and you can check out all the appliques we've done. Just remember to use the same kind of yarn. So if you're using whatever cotton yarn you've used for your dishcloth, use the same cotton yarn for your applique and you can follow along whichever applique tutorial you want to try out. Once you've decided on your applique, you can decide where you want to put it. I'm putting it on the front where all the ridges are, and I'm going to use the long string that I left attached. You can pin your applique into place if that makes you more comfortable, or if you're like me, you can just sort of hold it. And in order to keep our stitches from showing through to the other side, we're going to pick up a stitch on the front of the dishcloth and pick up the corresponding edge stitch on the applique. So if you've done any kind of applique patterns along with me, you'll know that this is one of my favorite methods for joining an applique. You use the top facing stitch of the dishcloth and the edge of the stitch of your applique. And as you're doing this, especially if you're just holding it in place like me, make sure you put it down every so often, make sure nothing's moved. And of course, you're not going to see any of those stitches showing through to the back if you use the top facing loops. So go ahead and stitch down your applique. Once you've finished sewing all the way around every single petal or whatever applique you've decided on, you can get right back to the beginning, make a little tiny knot at the side of your applique. Make sure it's nice and tight up against your applique, and then you can run your needle underneath some of those applique stitches because you want to make sure that you weave this in back and forth a few times so that A, your yarn doesn't go anywhere, and B, you don't see your tail sticking out. So don't pull too tightly because you don't want to pull anything out of alignment, but running back and forth across these stitches, you won't see the tail. And if you've got really grabby yarn like I do, going back and forth twice is fine. If it's a little more on the slippery side or your stitches are kind of loose, then you might want to do it 3 times. Trim whatever's left, and there you go. One super adorable vintage daisy pot holder, just in time for Mother's Day. Nice and tidy on the back, and a sweet little daisy on the front. One fresh as a daisy pot holder, just in time for Mother's Day. A new pot holder is always a welcome article around our house. In fact, a whole set is even sweeter, and it's a really nice thing to bring with you as a hostess gift. I hope you enjoyed making this along with me today, and we will see you soon here on the Jayda InStitches show. Until then, stay safe, stay crafty, have an awesome week, and happy Mother's Day! Bye everybody!